Hi, I'm Greg Nicotero. This is Howard Berger of K&B Effects Group. And in 1990, almost 20 years ago, we were given the job to create all the special effects, animatronics, and makeup for Army of Darkness.
Or Bruce Campbell versus the Army of Darkness, as it was originally called. Now we walk into the heart of K&B Effects Studios.
So we're giving you an opportunity to look at the behind-the-scenes footage that we personally shot in the studio, making a Deadite, winged Deadite, designing creatures, skeletons, spooky, scary things that go bump in.
That's right, and learn how the pit bitch came about and all the other crazy things that we got to do for this movie. So sit back and enjoy what you're about to see. It was really kind of fun because, Rob Tapert and Sam Raimi called us and said, hey, we're doing this movie, and it's, Bruce Campbell versus the Army of Darkness. And there's all this really great stuff in it, tons of skeleton stuff, all these talking skeletons, these winged Deadites and all that. So right away, our brains were like clicking.
We knew that there was going to be much more puppet work, and it was a much bigger movie. I mean, the idea really was that it was more an homage to Ray Harryhausen than anything else.
So we sat down, and all of us were doing tons and tons of drawings, and Sam came into the shop, and we basically had everything laid out, and he looked at it and he loved it all.
I mean, we used every technique in the book. We used prosthetic makeups, there was stop motion animation, we had intravision and rear screen projection and full-size puppets. I mean, it was pre-CGI, but we literally used every single trick in the book in terms of coming up with these visuals that Sam responded to so much in the early Harryhausen movies.
So when you're faced with having to create the Army of Darkness, there's a lot there. There's a lot that we had to try to come up with. And so we sat down and figured out what we think we need, and what we can make, also for the money that was allotted for.
One of the first things that we did was we bought a couple skeleton model kits, and we built the skeletons, and then we added the sort of standard Harryhausen brown, we added shredded clothing, we added little rotted flesh and dangling flesh. We lit it, and we had little fog machines, and we had broken trees. It was like we built a little diorama, and we photographed it, and we showed them to Sam, and we said, hey, what do you think about something like this? He was blown away. That's it, did you make those already? And that was kind of where we started with our Deadite concept. So here we have a Deadite from Army of Darkness. Now, one thing that you can notice is, in regards to the skull, Ray Harryhausen always added this kind of little evil brow. So in this sculpture, you can see that we changed the shape of the brow to give it that little homage to Ray Harryhausen. This was a tremendous challenge because of the fact that there's no skin on it, and we can see through all the bones. I mean, even just making a fiberglass rib cage, you have to put it together and then grind out and take all the seams off. All of this, the housings and the cables and everything that made the head move side to side, up and down, and made the jaw move, all ran straight down the spine and came out behind the pelvis. The other trick too was then we had armor that we had to create for all these characters. And the armor had to be lightweight so that we could actually still maintain the personality of these characters. So all the swords were hollow vacuum formed swords that were really lightweight.
Here's one of the swords we made for display, like for Evil Dead. And the elbows and stuff. And then we made this shield out of trash can lid, skulls.
Everything had to be super thin plastic, or else the weight of a real shield or a real sword, we would have never been able to get that same amount of life out of it. In terms of the Deadites, we had a couple standard, typical Deadite looks because we wanted the continuity from Evil Dead 2. And then there are the monster versions, like the pit sequence. There were two different characters that we had. We had one character who was our standard Evil Dead character that had the white eyes and the veins and the pale skin.
Eyes open. Try and play yourself free.
As Sam would say, a woochie poo chin and a woochie nose, and had a forehead piece and contact lenses and the dentures,
Swallow your soul.
And then we had the pit bitch.
This other sort of more monstrous version that was worn by an actor named Bill Bryant, who had played the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
We designed it out, And Sam saw the artwork. He's like, I don't know about that, you know. So we went ahead and we built it anyhow, and we dressed Bill in the whole suit, and we had him on a platform. So he just looked like a mannequin. Sam came in and looked at it, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. And then Bill leaped down and grabbed Sam, and Sam jumped back and screamed and went, oh my God, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. That's in my movie. That's 100% in my movie.
Practice and action. Yes. That was kind of a Humpty Dumpty walk. Oh. And I want a ferocious monster from hell. I want you to come out suddenly with great ferocity, keep that head alive, and come after him. Yeah. You're a wild thing, a thing born of the fires of hell. Action. Turn. Now! Oh, it's ready to break.
Another great thing was for the winged Deadite. And we had this dancer, her name was Nadine, in the winged Deadite suit.
We were actually able to build the spines of the wings that were hinged. And then the membrane of the wing itself was a combination of silk with latex stippled on it and then airbrush so that you still got some light through it. So we built it so that she could put her arms inside the wings and flap them. And we put fake arms that were mounted to the front.
Go ahead and flap them once or twice.
Then, when we would get tighter on her, we would switch it so that her arms would be in the front and we would be puppeteering the wings off the outside. So out of frame, we would be flapping the wings.
Ready and action. And action. And up. I think that can be made to work.
And it was just a really simple optical illusion that worked so well and was so effective.
Hold your arms, you'll hit the ground!
One of the things that we realized as we were building all these Deadites was they wouldn't necessarily all be complete skeletons. So at one point, Sam had suggested, it would be really fun if we did like a legless Deadite. So we built a really simple puppet that was operated with rods coming out of the elbows. If you would pull one rod forward, the shoulder would do this, and then you pull the other one forward and the shoulder would do this. And then we segmented the spine so that the pelvis could sort of flap a little behind it. So we just buried the rods, and then for a lot of those shots, we were able to sort of put the rods on the ground and sort of lead it forward. I think Bob or Howard or somebody put a knife in the mouth so that the dialogue could actually be like a guy was clenched, like, all right, I'm coming after you. You know, it was really kind of funny.
And action.
I'll cut your gizzard out. Where'd he go? Hey!
And then we flattened them. And as they were cutting the movie together, they realized that they were missing a little beat. So we added that scene where Bruce is kind of hanging out with everybody after he's killed the Deadites, and he's sort of, the girls are feeding him grapes and that's all this cheesy stuff. And then the old woman turns, and she's possessed. We hired an actress named Patty Tallman.
Here we are doing the witch makeup.
And we did an old age makeup on her because we wanted it to be an old woman, but she looks old and kind of frail, but as soon as she gets possessed, she has the strength of 20 men, as Sam would say.
Action.
You shall never obtain the Necronomicon! We shall feast upon your sound!
Yo, she-bitch. Let's go.
This is our Deadite captain. Now, one of the things that was interesting for us was being able to take the level of detail in terms of the armor and everything. Like this helmet is literally made out of foam. And what we did was we created all these little additional detail design items. And you can see in regards to the sculpture how we utilized that exaggerated brow and kind of gave him shriveled, puckered lips with the acrylic teeth in there. But it's basically a caricature. Doesn't really look like a human skull. It's sort of like a slightly mutated monster version. So this was a little more advanced than just the skeleton puppets because we had more foam latex skin covering areas that allowed us to get a little more movement out of it.
Hey, Mark!
And action! Whoa! My lord, we are positioned on both fronts.
Whenever we're working on a film and we take a look at, what's ahead of us, what we need to build, we, of course, need to think about how we're going to execute the effects or the puppets or the makeups on set.
It's not just about being a special effects person. You have to think like an editor, you have to think like a director, you have to think like an actor, you have to think like you have to wear all these different hats. I mean, it's not enough to just build a puppet and then show up on set. If the DP can't figure out how to light it, it's a gigantic collaborative effort. The amazing thing too was that Sam storyboarded every single shot in that movie. It was the first time that I had ever seen anything like that.
Sam's amazingly articulate with what he wants to shoot, and his storyboards basically, led the path that we followed.
You could literally do frame by frame comparison of storyboard to shot in the movie, and it matches almost exactly.
Every morning we'd go to set and take a look at the storyboards that we're going to shoot and go, Sam, so this board looks like there's 5 deadites. What are we looking at? It's like, well, how many do we have again? I go, you got 40. I want 40. We knew Sam was going to just try to destroy everything. So we spend a lot of time in the shop troubleshooting all that. And we were able to do a quick fix in seconds on set, and we knew that's what Sam demanded. He likes to shoot so much that we were not interested in limiting him. And that's how we did the whole entire show. And even down to we did a whole 40 rigid skeletons that get sliced up by the car, the Deathmobile. And so we shot, first night, shot it, 40 skeletons destroyed. Then the next night, Sam's like, hey, I want to do more of those shots. I'm like, we don't have any more skeletons. Like, you have all the pieces? I'm like, yeah, and there's boxes of skeleton pieces. I'm like, okay, quick. And then we just put them all together and refoamed them. I think we ended up, in all, if you counted, we probably annihilated 800 skeletons. At one point, we just went, Sam, there's no more skeleton. All it is dust. We can't glue together this dust of these deadites, We would put ourselves in harm's way all the time. And I remember I was puppeteering something. Me and another puppeteer were on the cart, and big explosions were going off, and we were wearing these face masks and stuff. And right next to us, boom, huge bloody explosion. And I'm like, holy macaroni, that was pretty darn close. The deadite skeleton puppets, they had to be built to last, but also be very simplistic, not weigh a lot because we were all carrying them. And I always ended up carrying the heaviest skeleton, which was our slave puppet.
Which were cable-operated upper body puppets that the cables went off to a matching mechanism off cameras.
There's a set of controllers that duplicate the mechanics of the puppet. And so a puppeteer gets on him, and when he moves his arms, the puppet moves his arms.
So 8 feet away, you'd have a guy doing this, moving his arms and simulating that he's fighting, and then the puppet would match all of those moves.
I would always have the weight of the 75-pound puppet, and then somebody else would be on there operating the slave mechanism. It was really, really difficult, and especially getting the performance and what Sam wanted over and over and over and over again,
We built a lot of personality into those puppets because they were really simple. They weren't overbuilt. They weren't so unwieldy or difficult to articulate that we couldn't get performances out of them.
Now let him bang his sword on this thing. Come on now! Yeah, excellent.
There's a great shot where the two skeletons lift the lid off the coffin, and the lid comes off, and the skeleton sits up. We put a tube in there with Fuller's Earth inside the tube, so one of us was blowing the dust out of the mouth at the same time. And I remember setting that up and rehearsing it so that we were able to, time it all out.
And lid goes off. Okay, up, Howard.
Sam was always very good about, letting us do what we wanted to. There's a lot of ad-libbing that we did with the puppets. That's what was fun about it.
You're doing a good job. I better watch the rear flank back here. Yeah, that's it. You fellas, good luck to you.
Somehow my puppets were always the nervous puppets, always shaking and looking around and being very nervous Nelly,
Now listen here, puppet. I want you to act very scared this scene. You get me?
A lot of it, aside from the puppeteering, was the voices that Sam and Scott Spiegel and everybody put into them, because it's one thing to see this crazy skeleton walking around, but that's another thing to kind of say, hey, everybody, come over here. And, it's like Sam did, like, probably most of those voices.
Hey, you're mine, sweetie. Get off of her.
Which added a whole other level of personality to those.
Let's get the hell out of here!
I remember doing the shot at Introvision with the bagpipes. We're puppeteering, and at one point I said, Sam, so I have a question. We put beards on the bagpipe skeletons, but they don't have any skin, so wouldn't the hair and all that stuff have fallen off? And he went, if you're thinking about that, you're not getting the spirit of the movie. And I just kind of laughed. We had 10 skeleton puppets that were built so that the puppeteers were out of frame below them.
These are the back pads. And then we have a rod on a metal plate connected to this that's screwed in. And this slides down onto that rod. And then you control the head from here, and then two puppeteers off the side with rods going to the elbows, moving around. Now this one doesn't have head movement, but this is kind of how it works. It'll have a sword and a shield in one hand. And it'll be on a thing and it'll move around.
So they basically dug these enormous trenches through the dirt, and we would be in those trenches, so that way we would be able to work with the actors that were up top on the ground. We had to also then cover ourselves in black, so we had like these black capes that we wore and black hoods, and some nights it'd be super hot, some nights it'd be really cold, and it was like the worst conditions ever. It was horrible.
Oh, God, I'm tired.
The shot out where the castle was, that whole sequence, that was probably 8 weeks of shooting, of nights just at the castle with everybody suited up and all the puppets and all the prosthetics.
We would start our day at 3 in the afternoon, shoot. We'd always be looking at that horizon for that sun to start raising up.
I'm exhausted. I'm waiting.
Puppets.
The majority of the background deadites that wore the costumes were a combination of stunt people and extras and day players. So a lot of the deadites that had to do hand-to-hand combat needed to be able to fight. It's a challenge because when you're in the desert and you're wearing a big foam latex suit and you have all this stuff on, and it's hot during the day and then it gets freezing cold at night, and between each take you got to take the gloves off and you got to take the head off and you got all the armor on top of it. And you'd have a lot of people that after the first couple days would be like, screw this, and never come back. And then we'd get a new person in and we'd be like, okay, here's your suit. This guy left, and now, we'd have to keep filling the ranks. There were other people that were so into it that they came every day, and they wouldn't have cared if it was a snowstorm or a tsunami. They would have worn those suits because they're like, hey, I'm working on Evil Dead 3,
And I think, if you were to remake Army of Darkness today, it'd all be CGI. And to me, I much prefer knowing that something was practically done. And I think Sam kind of still feels that way.
It always astounds me, from everything from Evil Dead 2 all the way up to Drag Me to Hell. I still stand on set and am amazed by the fingerprints that Sam puts on things that other directors don't.
It's directors like that that still keep us going and still feed our enthusiasm and our excitement for what we do.
I've done almost 700 films, and I would say that Army of Darkness is certainly in the top 10 in terms of how much fun it was to make, and in terms of the legacy that K&B has left in being involved with a project like that.
Somebody asked me just recently, what is the movie, what's the DVD cover you signed the most? And I said it's either Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness. Those two, for some reason, stand out amongst all the other movies that we've ever done at K&B.
Well, I go to conventions and little kids will come up to talk to me about stuff, and they'll say, "Oh, I loved Army of Darkness. I love this movie." And you know what I'll say to them? I'll say, I was you one time. I was the kid at the convention on the other side of the table meeting George Romero and Tom Savini when I was younger and thinking, oh, I'd love to get into special effects. How would I do that?
To me, that's really the big payoff, that we've made a difference in somebody's life or the way they see things and want to, duplicate, or be inspired by the work that we've done. And it's nice to know that we're part of that inspiration.
And those kids could grow up to be, the next Sam Raimi or the next Greg Nicotero or Howard Berger, or they could then in turn put their mark on future generations so that their kids will go see movies.